Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Today I want to talk about the lawsuit where Logan Paul is suing Coffeezilla. Now, if you don't know who these people are, Logan Paul is an influencer who is now also a wrestler and a boxer and a serial entrepreneur. He's got a bunch of different things on the go. And Coffeezilla is a YouTuber who has grown to tremendous success on exposing scams and other sort of similar bad behavior. Now, why is Logan Paul suing Coffeezilla? Well, it's all about a game called CryptoZoo that never ended up coming out. CryptoZoo was this NFT-based thing where you would buy these imaginary animals and then you would mate your imaginary animals to create hybrid imaginary animals. And all of this was tied to cryptocurrency and NFTs so that there were people making a buck on this as well. And if you're thinking, how could this possibly have turned out badly? Well, you're probably seeing all of the red flags. Anyway, Coffeezilla pointed out that this whole CryptoZoo project turned into a giant debacle, and he called out, amongst others, Logan Paul for his involvement in it. So let's have a look at the lawsuit, and we're not going to go through it line by line. If enough people are interested, I can do a line-by-line review as well. But for this one, we're going to just sort of get ourselves the gist. All right. So we've got Logan Paul and Stephen Finlayson and Coffee Break Productions doing business as Coffeezilla. And this is in the Western District of Texas, but this is federal court. And that's important because this lawsuit doesn't really feel like it's a lawsuit for actual money. It feels like there's something else going on, and the federal court thing is important for that other stuff going on. Okay, so it starts off with plaintiff Logan Paul, a globally recognized entertainer, athlete, and entrepreneur, brings this defamation action against defendant Stephen Finlayson. I'm reporting his name because it's already well out there, aka Coffeezilla, a self-described investigative journalist and internet detective, in scare quotes, with no actual journalism training or a private investigator's license, to hold him accountable for maliciously and repeatedly publishing false statements accusing Paul of operating a scam in connection with a troubled blockchain project called CryptoZoo. All right, now, you're already seeing something that is becoming very common in these internet lawsuits about, oh, this person has no actual journalism training. You don't need journalism training to do reporting. I mean, it might help, it might be useful, but it's not actually required. It's not necessary. You don't need a journalist license. And private investigator's license, you need to do certain kinds of things, but not what Coffeezilla is up to. So none of this is super relevant. And when they say, oh, he doesn't have a private investigator's license, who cares? Like, this is completely irrelevant, but okay. Starting when he released a 3-part YouTube series on CryptoZoo in December 2022 and continuing into the present, Finlayson has perpetuated the false narrative that Paul scammed and defrauded his own fans in connection with the project. Finlayson has perpetuated this false narrative despite knowing, and they've italicized that, and that's important, it to be completely and utterly false in order to enhance his own profile and increase his viewership and income in the process. And indeed, he has done so despite being in possession of and purposefully omitting from his series and related statements overwhelming objective evidence that Paul had, in reality, been enthusiastic about the project and deeply committed to its success, only to be deceived by several of the project's trusted advisors who turned out to be con men. Okay, so yeah, the reason why they say knowing is because Logan Paul is going to be viewed as a public figure or a limited purpose public figure, which means that in order to establish defamation, they have to show that there was actual malice, which means that they have to show that Coffeezilla here knew or was acting recklessly as to, whether or not this was true. So when they say knowing it wasn't true, that's to meet a legal requirement. So what is the project here? They're going to tell us a little bit more. In early 2021, Paul conceived of CryptoZoo from an animal fusion concept he had seen go viral in other contexts, i.e., he borrowed the idea from other people. CryptoZoo was to be a game utilizing blockchain technology in which players would be able to purchase egg non-fungible tokens that would then hatch into animal NFTs. Players would then be able to breed those animals to create unique and ever rarer hybrid animals, which would earn players an in-game cryptocurrency called Zoo tokens based on their rarity. All of this activity would be carried out in a virtual ecosystem where animals could continue to be bred, traded, and used for mini arcade games, or sold to earn more Zoo tokens. So if you ever played Neopets, this is basically Neopets plus crypto. And if you're wondering how not to get ripped off, avoiding any project that says NFTs in it is a really good sort of rule of thumb. This is setting off all of my red flags, and it should probably, So he is saying, Logan Paul acknowledges that CryptoZoo fell apart and that a whole bunch of people lost a ton of money. The thing is he ends up blaming some other people, including Eduardo Eddie Ibanez, who turned out to be a charlatan who had lied to Paul and many others about his background and credentials. We'll see about his background and credentials and whether or not he should have been believed, because that's going to be a thing. They also talk about Jake Greenbaum. Paul's efforts were also stymied and frustrated by a blockchain and crypto advisor named Jake Greenbaum, aka Crypto King, who turned out to be more interested in trying to personally profit than in helping to create a legitimate project. I kind of feel like that was probably, there was a warning sign there. Like the fact that he goes by Crypto King. I'm not really anybody who goes by like Crypto King or Crypto Duke. I'm not going to take as likely to be sort of in it for anybody other than themselves. So they note, both Ibanez and Greenbaum took advantage of the hype created by Paul's affiliation with the project in order to surreptitiously sell Zoo tokens for millions of dollars at the expense of those acquiring tokens in anticipation of actually being able to play the game. So what does this establish? Well, it establishes that ultimately CryptoZoo was a scam. It turned out to be a scam. The question is whether it was Logan Paul's scam, or whether, as Logan Paul alleges, that the scam was from Ibanez and Greenbaum. So what is the issue? They note, regrettably, despite rightfully exposing the wrongdoing of Ibanez and Greenbaum in his YouTube series, defendant Finlayson understood, that's Coffeezilla, that accusing a celebrity like Paul, italicized, of perpetuating a scam would generate exponentially more clicks, views, and ultimately revenue, and would increase his own profile. Coffeezilla therefore titled his series Investigating Logan Paul's Biggest Scam, and he proceeded to confidently tell his viewers that not only that the project was a scam, but it was a scam conceived of and perpetuated by Paul. The three-part series was viewed tens of millions of times. Each of the videos remain among Coffeezilla's most popular of all time, and viewers and the public at large were captivated by the narrative of an unserious social media influencer who had supposedly used his fame to dupe his fans into investing money into a fake crypto project while always intending to abscond with the money. Okay, now the problem that we're going to run into is that Logan Paul doesn't actually have quotes to back up most of this. Okay, so let's skip ahead a little bit because, jurisdiction and venue. They're saying that this is a federal court matter because there's diversity of citizenship, i.e. that the people live and reside and are residents of different states, and that the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. This is important because they want it to be in federal court. Why do they want it to be in federal court? Because if it's in federal court, then the Texas anti-slap that ordinarily would apply doesn't help here. This is the Fifth Circuit. They don't really respect state anti-slaps. This is probably a good reason to have a federal anti-slap, but I don't think any of the parties in the US are talking about that, but it would be a good thing to implement. So, yeah, this is important, although it is also boring. So let's move on. They note that Paul has millions of followers and fans across his social media platform, and that major brands like Pepsi, Ritz, HBO, and Virgin Mobile began reaching out to Paul with requests that he produce videos to market their products. So he's talking about how famous he is, and he mentions that he got guest starring roles on Law & Order SVU and on Disney's Bizaardvark. I don't actually know what a Bizaardvark is. I might be old, but okay. Now they get to something that's kind of interesting to throw into his own lawsuit. It's actually kind of weird, and so we'll talk about this. They say Paul's rising star, however, was not entirely free from controversy. That's a gentle way to say that people found out how much of a dirtbag he is and really took issue with it. So in December 2017, Paul traveled to Japan with friends to produce a series of vlog episodes called Tokyo Adventures. One of the videos was set to feature Paul and his friends camping overnight in the Aokigahara forest, I hope I got that right, which, given its reputation as a common site for a word YouTube doesn't like, was rumored to be haunted. It is said to be a place where people go to end their lives. So if you're already thinking this is a bad idea, in the same way that like me doing a dance party video in like a veteran's graveyard would be a bad idea, then you are smarter than Logan Paul was, because this was already super tasteless. Paul's aim was to produce a spooky yet lighthearted episode of the group exploring, setting up camp, and surviving the night amongst the forest's supposed ghosts. Which, again, he's doing this in a place of personal tragedy for a lot of people. That's pretty gross. Things quickly took a turn, however. I wouldn't say they took a turn, they took the expected terrible directions when the group unexpectedly came across the body of a person who'd ended their life. In a series of regrettable decisions that Paul freely acknowledges showed immaturity, insensitivity, and poor judgment, instead of turning off the camera, Paul continued to film and later uploaded the video to his YouTube channel. Not just continued to film, but also continued to film, edited, you know, all of the multiple steps. It's not like this was just a, you know, a snap decision. This is something that would have taken a whole bunch of different steps. So, yeah, people kind of turned against him when they saw him using a dead body of somebody who had died incredibly tragically for clout. Because it's gross, right? That's pretty awful. The blowback against Paul, justifiably, was swift and relentless. Except later he's going to argue that it has in fact relented. Thousands of people, including celebrities, took to Twitter and other platforms to express their outrage over the video and to condemn Paul for exploiting a victim for views and subjecting his young audience to such horrific content. Within a day, 200,000 people signed a petition to demand YouTube remove Paul from its platform, and news of the controversial video made international headlines. They didn't actually remove him from their platform, more is the pity. In the face of this overwhelming criticism, Paul took the video down and posted a series of apologies in which he expressed shame and disappointment in himself. This is also kind of textbook reputation management. So, but the damage was done. Within days, Paul's brand and reputation, which he had spent years building, was in tatters. YouTube removed Paul from Google's preferred ads program, which allowed brands to sell ads on the platform's top content creators, and suspended a planned YouTube Red movie deal with him. Meanwhile, the number of viewers and new subscribers on Paul's YouTube channel plummeted. Okay. So he notes the harsh blowback took a toll on Paul's own mental health as he attempted to reevaluate himself. Isn't that sad? That his horrible actions led to consequences. Paul not only lost lucrative opportunities, but also valued personal relationships. Almost overnight, he went from being a well-loved rising star with a flourishing brand to what felt like the most hated person in the world. You'll note that there is no discussion of like the family of the person that, yeah. So anyway, they talk about how he does a whole bunch of reputation management, rebuilds his reputation, and so forth. And then they note that Paul co-founded a sport and energy drink called Prime Hydration LLC, which has become extremely successful, surpassing 1.2 billion in annual sales in 2023. Fair enough, I've never done 1.2 billion or even million in sales. So Paul has since credited the controversial Japan episode with helping him to reset and become a better person. Debatable. In a 2022 interview, he spoke openly about that dark time in his life and how it altered his trajectory, stating, "I often look back at that time of my life and the person I was unfortunately becoming, and now at 26, I can safely say Japan was the biggest blessing in my life. I needed a reset. I needed life to check me, and it did. And I became a person that I ended up loving instead of becoming that jackass because I was heading down a nasty path that was validated by clout, money, fame, wealth, which is all just superficial bullshit, and it doesn't make a person great. And so I really had to revisit my values, rediscover myself, open my ears, listen to the people around me, put the right people in place around me. At the time, it was like the worst thing ever. I don't think there was a more hated person in the world than me, and I'm still rebuilding to this day and trying to learn and keeping my ears open and getting involved in positive conversation and positive change around the world. It ended up forcing me to become somebody who I love, and I'm not sure I loved myself back then." Well, I kind of get the sense that he loves himself a fair bit, but when he says, like, I was heading down a nasty path that was validated by clout, money, fame, wealth, those seem to be the things he's bragging about having in this lawsuit. So I don't know that there's really that much of a path change here. But, keep on loving yourself, dude. So by applying the charisma and tireless work ethic that made him successful in the first place, but with greater humility and self-reflection, this whole lawsuit is him loving himself, Paul was able to salvage and rebuild his career and reputation. Although extremely painful at the time, the Japan episode taught Paul a valuable lesson about the importance of one's reputation, how quickly it can be destroyed, and how hard it can be to repair it. Okay, so we've already talked about the whole CryptoZoo thing. We'll skip over just about all of that, but he's also going to mention another controversy that he had in the past. So around the same time as his Save the Kids series, in July 2021, Coffeezilla published a video he titled "Logan Paul's New Crypto Coin is an Embarrassment," which focused on a meme token called Dink Doink. In that video, Coffeezilla falsely accused Paul of participating in what he characterized as a Ponzi scheme, alleging Paul promoted the token and concealed his involvement in its creation for the purpose of enriching himself in an eventual sell-off. There was no truth whatsoever to Coffeezilla's allegations of bad intent. Paul's trading activity involving the token, which was not discussed at all in the video, was limited. And although Paul was allocated Dink Doink tokens by its founder, he never sold these tokens. They sit in his digital wallet to this day. But the Dink Doink video nevertheless received nearly 800,000 views, and Coffeezilla was learning that the intersection of cryptocurrency and social media influencers, and especially Paul, was of great interest to his potential audience and had the potential to further increase his profile and earn him significant income. And I'm sure Coffeezilla is making bank, but we'll talk about that. Okay, so will skip on a little further to note 4 days later, Findason or Coffeezilla published part 2 on his YouTube account. That video is titled "The Biggest Fraud in Logan Paul's Scam." They say the biggest fraud referred to in the title is Ibanez, who, as discussed, led the game's development efforts. So apparently Logan Paul is upset that Coffeezilla pointed the finger at Ibanez because Logan Paul says the real villain is Ibanez. If you're confused here, well, congratulations. That is the appropriate response to this lawsuit, is to stare at it and go, what? Yeah. The video details Ibanez's extensive history of exaggerating, misrepresenting, and flat-out fabricating aspects of his personal, educational, and professional background. Although none of this was known to Paul at the time Ibanez was invited to join the CryptoZoo team, or indeed until after the game was publicly announced and egg NFTs were made available for sale to the public. Now you might be saying, how could he possibly have known that Ibanez was suspect? Well, I mean, he's the guy forming the team, so you'd think he'd be the guy doing like background checks and background research and so forth. You know, I don't hire somebody without doing some digging into them. But no, instead we're going to hear why you might have. There were some little subtle clues here, just saying. And amongst the subtle clues, after delving into Ibanez's history of deception, which included falsely claiming to be an orphan, lying about attending MIT, lying about working with the CIA, and lying about having helped the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl, the video, like, some of these are things you could easily check. Like somebody says, oh, I attended MIT. It's like, you can check that. That is something you can verify. But the guy says he went to the MIT, he worked for the CIA, he like helped the Eagles win. Was he also like an astronaut and a ninja and maybe also a pirate? Like, come on. The video introduced another member of the CryptoZoo team, Greenbaum. Coffeezilla stated in the video that he received a call from Greenbaum, who was willing to talk about his experience on the project. Okay. So, yeah, this is kind of seeming, you kind of may be wondering, like, huh, this is weird, and it is. So, they note here, Coffeezilla then asserted that Paul is nevertheless not innocent in all of this because he was the face of CryptoZoo and ultimately failed to deliver a viable game. Okay. This is not sounding like a viable lawsuit yet, but, so incredibly, only in a short portion at the end of a 3-part video series repeatedly accusing Paul of operating a scam, does Coffeezilla tacitly acknowledge that there was no evidence that Paul attempted to scam anyone, or that he even profited off of CryptoZoo at all. Coffeezilla's conclusion, albeit made reluctantly and opaquely, was essentially that Paul was guilty only of putting together a team that was not up to the task and of failing to effectively manage the project. That, of course, is far different from intentionally engaging in an effort to scam people and to commit financial fraud. So what he's saying is that Coffeezilla's conclusion in the video is the same conclusion that Logan Paul is reaching in this lawsuit, and I don't understand why he's suing over that. Normally, you would kind of suggest that the conclusion was something you disagree with and not something you agree with. It sounds like he's really more upset about the flavor of the video and how it gets there rather than the actual conclusion of it. Okay, not feeling great about this. They say Coffeezilla also omitted that as of August 2021, several months after the launch of the Zoo token, the exact same text message string that showed that Paul was still considering whether to even include a token with the game at all, asking his co-founders whether it makes it gimmicky and the strength of our NFTs and the art can speak for itself, and it becomes solely collectible based, like the banger projects right now. The ensuing dialogue makes it clear that Paul only proceeded to include the token because Greenbaum and Ibanez convinced him it was essential to the functionality of the game. In fact, when Ibanez relayed to Paul that the market cap of the token had reached 100 million on August 16, 2021, Paul's response was, "Bro, who cares? Honestly, F all that. I hope people find the stupid satisfaction we find with hatching their hybrids. F the token, F everything. I want someone to laugh out loud about this." And then Paul sent a picture of a panda cat, one of the hybrid animals that was to be featured in the game. So, this is a panda cat. And if you're thinking this looks dumb, then yeah, this is not an image that screams out to me, hey, this is a legitimate project, because this looks like something I might have done with Photoshop as a joke as a kid. But okay, okay, yeah, panda cat. So Coffeezilla's allegation that Paul had wiped his hands of and abandoned the project also was false, as Paul's team continued to try and get the project back on track all the way up until the release of Coffeezilla's CryptoZoo series and after. In fact, Paul's team ultimately was able to successfully complete the development of the game in 2023, only to eventually realize that its release was not feasible for regulatory reasons that Paul had never previously been apprised. I.e., we couldn't release the game because it was illegal to do so. Like, it would be illegal for us to run this game. And if you're thinking, oh, that totally sounds like not a scam, then you and I are not in agreement. Because, like, we're running this big game that turns out to not be lawful. There's not a lot of games on the market that are unlawful, you know, that are not feasible for regulatory reasons. So, yeah, this is a whole thing to include right here. This is some spice, I guess. Okay. So, and they also, this I thought was kind of funny. I thought this was actually pretty hilarious just as a criminal defense lawyer. They say, fundamentally, Coffeezilla's repeated allegation that Paul conceived of and operated CryptoZoo as a scam also makes no sense and is inherently improbable. As an influencer whose ability to earn money is largely based on the strength of his personal brand and reputation, it would make no sense for Paul to set out to scam his own fans and supporters in a way that would inevitably be revealed, destroying his reputation in the process. This makes no sense describes like 99% of criminal law and quite possibly most frauds, because most frauds, and I'm not saying Logan Paul is a fraud, I'm saying that he is saying we're not a fraud here because, you know, it would burn my reputation. Yeah, that's what happens when a fraud is discovered. So, you know, you get people who are like religious fraudsters who are running a church and they have a great reputation in the community, which is how that fraud works. And the whole thing of like, most crime doesn't pay a huge amount. Most crime doesn't, you know, whatever. And I'm not saying Logan Paul did crime. I'm just saying the argument of nobody would ever do a scam in a situation that might destroy their reputation or that might ultimately hurt them. That makes no sense to me as a criminal defense lawyer because people do that all the time. Now, that may not be Logan Paul, but the argument makes no sense. So, yeah. So on January 13th, 2023, Paul announced an initiative whereby he pledged up to 1.3 million of personal funds to buy back all of the base egg and base animal NFTs from disappointed holders. You'll note zoo tokens seem to be excluded here. And zoo tokens are where a lot of the people lost all of their money. You'll also note here, this whole thing is mired in controversy itself, because the allegations are that he was paying fractions of what people had paid, so not like a full refund and not a full return of the money. And also you had to waive your right to sue. So basically it's like, we'll give you a part of your money back, but you can't sue us. You can't participate in the lawsuit for... Oh, did I mention that there's a lawsuit? Yeah, we're getting to that. So Paul made this pledge even though he was not the recipient of any of the funds used to purchase the NFTs in the first place, had not profited in any way from the project, and to the contrary, had incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses trying to turn it into a reality. Pro tip, stay the heck out of crypto stuff, and that will, that will probably help you avoid this kind of thing. All right, continuing on. Once again, Coffeezilla repeatedly accused Paul of scamming those who bought egg NFTs or zoo tokens. The video opened with Coffeezilla proclaiming Logan Paul is refunding the people he scammed if they promise to stop suing him. He then continued by accusing Paul of engaging in a massive con and ridiculing Paul's buyback efforts by saying that Logan Paul is not a hero for doing this or making things right. He's a serial scammer who's offering a minority refund as a last-ditch effort to save his wallet and his reputation. A lot of that sounds like opinion to me. An opinion you can't sue over. To date, Coffeezilla's January 5th, 2024 YouTube video has been viewed over 5 million times, and once again, commenters who viewed the video understood Coffeezilla to be accusing Paul of committing financial fraud. For example, commenters called Paul dishonest and a scumbag who needs jail time, labeled him a sociopath, accused him of fraud, and called him the guy who scammed his fans. Scam and fraud are not necessarily the same thing, right? Fraud is a criminal offense. Saying somebody ran a scam is not necessarily a criminal offense. I think multi-level marketing is generally a scam, but a lot of it is legal. So, yeah, I think they're going to have some issues there. But, carrying on, they note they have the title of Paul's NFT buyback was an enormous success. This is also hotly disputed. It says the funds were officially disbursed on March 25th, 2024. Given Eth's exchange rate that day, Paul was ultimately able to disburse over $1 million of his own money to buy back egg NFTs from NFT holders who submitted a claim. It bears repeating that Paul never received any funds from the purchases of egg NFTs in the first place. That's a really interesting thing, because there were also like zoo tokens. Did he get money from zoo tokens? That's not mentioned here. So, yeah. At least not in this paragraph. So the funds that he disbursed as part of the buyback were not a refund of money made from the sale of NFTs, but rather came from Paul's own assets. Between his own investments in the game's art and development, let's see that panda cat again. His losses on zoo tokens that he bought and never sold, and the buyback program. Okay, he's saying he lost on the zoo tokens. Paul did not earn a single cent from CryptoZoo. All right, I was wrong about in this paragraph. He says, I didn't make any money. Okay. In fact, he lost well over $1 million on the project. That doesn't mean that you... Like, scam is a vague term. So... Nevertheless, Paul was heartened by the success of the buyback, the high levels of participation, and the amount of funds that he was able to distribute to eligible holders. If you were heartened by the amount of funds that you were able to distribute more funds. I'm sure that everybody would be cool if you paid back to make more people whole, or to make people more completely whole. If you are heartened by the amount of funds you are able to distribute some funds. Make with the fun distributing. While bad actors like Greenbaum and Ibanez, who actually made millions off of CryptoZoo, shirked accountability and did nothing to help those who lost money trying to participate in the game, and in Greenbaum's case, appear to have fled the country. Not a bad move. Paul stepped up and did the right thing to try and bring some closure to the whole unfortunate episode. Not surprisingly, Coffeezilla never commented on the enormous success of the buyback program or the fact that Paul resoundingly delivered on his promise. People don't have to comment on the nice things you do, and they also don't have to agree that those things are nice, because it sounds like Coffeezilla disagrees that the buyback was actually good. All right, so it continues on, and you'll notice we are at page 42 of 47 when they get to the first claim. Now, they spent a lot of time talking about Logan Paul and his career and how great he is and how much he loves himself, but it takes them to page 42 to get to claims here. So, yeah. The first claim is over a tweet that says, Logan Paul really is the type of dude to thank you when you expose his scam, then block you when you remind him to pay up. Okay, so that's the first claim. The second claim is for a video titled Logan Paul's Scam Isn't Over, because the opening lines of the video refer to CryptoZoo as a scam created by Logan Paul. Now, Logan Paul agrees that CryptoZoo turned out to be a scam, in the sense that he agrees that Ibanez and Greenbaum ripped people off. That seems to be his claims here. They seem to be pretty clear in that. He agrees that he created CryptoZoo. What he disagrees with is the degree to which he was responsible for it ultimately turning into a scam. So, okay. Coffeezilla left no doubt that he was accusing Paul of intentionally defrauding individuals who bought egg NFTs or Zoo tokens by referring to those people as his victims, declaring to his audience that Paul was guilty, and his offer to reimburse buyers of egg NFTs was an admission of guilt, and stating that Paul was just pretending he'd changed. Okay, so that's the second claim. The third claim is the video titled Logan Paul's Refund, where Coffeezilla accuses Paul of orchestrating a massive con, referred to him as a serial scammer, and referred to those who bought Zoo tokens or CryptoZoo egg NFTs as the people he, meaning Logan Paul, scammed. Okay. So, what do they want? They want money in amounts unspecified. Okay. So, that is the lawsuit. And I am not super thrilled with this lawsuit. I think it's a pretty shabby lawsuit. Now, what could this lawsuit be for if it's not a great lawsuit where, you know, you think, oh, he's going to get all this money from, because I don't think he's going to get all this money from Coffeezilla. What I suspect, and this is my opinions, my feelings on this, is that the purpose of this is not to actually win the lawsuit and get money from Coffeezilla. The purpose, to me, seems to me to be to smack Coffeezilla down by hitting him with tremendous financial costs for defending this lawsuit. So that appears to be what is going on there. It is what it is. This would explain why, you know, well, a bunch of things. But it is unquestionable that Logan Paul has more cash to run a lawsuit than Coffeezilla does. The other thing is that this lawsuit, a ton of it is spent sort of puffing up Logan Paul. And so it really seems to be a PR thing. Now, lawsuits are a terrible way to do PR because the Streisand effect is a whole thing. And now a whole bunch of people are commenting on this lawsuit. Hi, I'm people. So, I mean, now all of the things in the lawsuit are, of course, allegations. And all of the things Coffeezilla has said are allegations. I don't have proof of anything. They're the people's respective opinions. I don't know what's going on because I haven't dug through all the text messages. I don't have those text messages. I haven't dug through all of their financials. I don't have their financials. But I mentioned that Logan Paul was getting sued over this, and he is. So here is the case. This is actually being brought by Attorney Tom, who's got a much more successful YouTube channel than I do, but he is bringing this lawsuit. Comes now, plaintiff Don Holland, on behalf of himself and all other similarly situated individuals, so this is a class action, and alleges on personal knowledge, investigation of his counsel, and on information and belief, the following claims against defendants CryptoZoo, Logan Paul, Danielle Strobel, Jeffrey Levin, Eddie Ibanez, Jake Greenbaum, aka Crypto King, and Ophir Bentov, aka Ben Roth, collectively the defendants. So, basically, this lawsuit alleges that CryptoZoo was a scam. That is sort of the ultimate allegation here, is that they say CryptoZoo is a scam. And what do I mean by that? Well, one of the causes of action, count one, fraud. So there is certainly an allegation out there that CryptoZoo was a scam. Now, Coffeezilla has filed a response to the lawsuit, and I'm just going to say this response is going to be mostly unsatisfying because of the way statements of defense are typically phrased. So what we see here is the usual statement of defense thing, which is basically we deny everything, we deny, we lack sufficient information, we deny, we deny. But there is one little bit of spice here that I do want to mention. And that comes in the highly unusual place for spice of jurisdiction and venue. Jurisdiction and venue is not usually where you find spicy time. But they say, defendants deny the allegation in paragraph 17 of the complaint that the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000, as plaintiff has a global reputation as a serial liar, tasteless exploiter, and untrustworthy entrepreneur, and he is incapable of sustaining more than $75,000 in damage to his already sullied reputation. Defendants further deny that plaintiff is capable of being damaged from allegations of unfair or improper business dealings, as plaintiff was already infamous for various business ventures which have been widely characterized as unfair and improper. Translation: what is Coffeezilla's legal team here saying? Bro, everyone knows you're a dirtbag, and therefore we can't defame you for $75,000 because everybody knows you're scum. Now, all right, but this isn't the only lawsuit on the go. Logan Paul mentioned Prime Hydration, you know, his Prime energy drinks. Well, those are also being sued. Prime Hydration is being sued because people say that his products were not good in various ways. So they note, you know, the amount of caffeine in them. They say, oh, you said that they were, you know, healthy, but these are totally not healthy. There have been allegations that some of these things included forever chemicals. I don't know if that's this lawsuit or a different lawsuit. But, you know, this is an allegation basically saying, hey, these were marketed to children and they caused irritability, mood swings, and difficulty sleeping. Yeah. So, there's that. Let's see what else. Oh, right. Logan Paul's Prime Hydration is also being sued so this is the case of Refresco Beverages Incorporated versus Congo Brands Procurement LLC and Prime Hydration LLC. And basically the allegation is you guys promised that you would buy a minimum amount of beverages, which this company was producing, or that if you couldn't buy that many, that you would pay fees to make up for it. And they say, yeah, they decided after agreeing to this minimum commitment that they backed out on it and that they left us holding the bag and that we were screwed. So there's that lawsuit, again alleging that Logan Paul's company screwed Refresco. That's kind of the allegation there. And yeah, now Coffeezilla has done a response video, and I'm not going to go over the response video here because I will link it so that in the description below so you can check it out. Coffeezilla is also selling merch to fund his defense because while he had insurance to cover him in the case he got sued, his insurance apparently decided to back out and to not cover him. So he might end up suing his insurance company. But he's got to fund his legal defense because the sort of 800-pound gorilla in the room financially, Logan Paul, is coming after him. But he said basically, Coffeezilla suggests in his video that the lawsuit was intended to discourage reporting into yet another interesting issue. And this interesting issue is close to home because it's Canadian. And this is the case of Ontario Securities Commission and Liquid Marketplace. So Liquid Marketplace, as well as Ryan Bahadori, Amin Nickdell, and Dennis Domazet. So what happens in this case? Well, Liquid Marketplace is another crypto project. And how does it work? Well, people have collectibles of some various type, and they say, okay, I'm going to put my collectible up with Liquid Marketplace. And so that basically would get divided up into hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of shares in this collectible to basically allow you to buy a portion of a Black Lotus or a portion of a Wayne Gretzky rookie card or whatever the heck collectible it was. Okay, now you'll notice that Logan Paul is not directly mentioned here, but Logan Paul's face is on the webpage, and they talk about him as being sort of one of the, the major movers and shakers with Liquid Marketplace. And so it kind of gets to this place where you're like, okay, Logan Paul says he's not a scammer and he's not being directly implicated in a bunch of these things, but he sure happens to be near a lot of scams. Isn't that weird? It feels weird. It feels strange. So what's going on in this one? Well, basically, first they were supposed to have, like, if you're going to sell securities, which the government is claiming these are securities, and that seems to be the appropriate classification of them, that you need to actually be registered and you need to be sort of authorized to sell securities. And they say these guys aren't. The other thing is that they say that these people misappropriated funds in the amount of approximately $3 million by making these hidden payments to shell companies. And these shell companies are sort of these fake consulting companies that they create purely for the purpose of making payments. Now, these shell companies are alleged to be Cooney Industries Incorporated, Cooney Marketing Incorporated, and Cooney Management Corporation. So each of them are, Cooney companies, and together they are the Cooney companies. So basically, the allegations here are that they were buying things like jewelry and watches and spa days and fancy clothes through these consulting companies, and you're not allowed to do that. They also allege that they lied to the Ontario Securities Commission when the Securities Commission said, hey, what compensation are you getting? They said, oh, we're getting about $100,000 in salary in 2022, and we didn't take a salary in 2023. And they're like, yeah, but you also paid yourself secretly this whole pile of additional money. So there's a further issue here. which is they're also alleging that this was fraudulent because they're saying these LMP tokens, those little shares of the collectibles, don't actually represent legal ownership of the collectibles, which would make them worthless. If they're saying that they didn't bother to get agreements to transfer ownership for most of these things. They say they only entered into agreements to transfer ownership for 6 of the 37 collectibles that were listed on the platform, and they have no other documentation for the others, which means if you bought a share, like one of these tokens, for one of those other collectibles, your collectible is a share of nothing. It's a share of imagination. It's a share of, yeah. The other problem is that they don't actually authenticate the collectibles, including, at least this is the allegation from the Ontario Securities Commission. I don't know for certain, but they say, that even when a collector was known to have previously brought fraudulent collectibles for tokenization on the platform, they didn't conduct diligence to ensure the authenticity of subsequent collectibles offered by such non-arm's length collectors. I.e., even when somebody had brought them fraudulent stuff before, they didn't check again. Like in future, they're just like, okay, we'll just take your word for it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? They also note the non-arm's length collector, which means that they're saying that there's some sort of relationship, some sort of connection between this collector who's bringing in these things. So, I'm going to be real interested to find out who has all of these collectibles that they're putting up here. And yeah. So there's other things there. They also say that they don't insure them. They've failed to ensure that they're covered by any insurance, which means like if the collectibles are lost in fire or flood or plague of locusts or whatever else, that there might not be any insurance and all of these token holders might be left holding the bag. So all of this is extremely sketchy, and Coffeezilla said he was in the process of doing a big deep dive into this, which I'm super curious about because, hey, Canada. So I'll watch that when it comes out. And but for right now, that's kind of a summary of all of this. What does all of this mean? Well, at the end of the day, it means that Logan Paul has done a great job of bringing tremendous attention to what he is up to. And, he says, oh, this is all legitimate. And it may be. It may be that at the end of the day, this all turns out to be a big nothing burger and he is, yeah, and everything was above board and so forth. Certainly Coffeezilla is going to say, well, was it though? There's going to be some interesting issues on the, on this litigation. We'll have to see. I'm going to keep following this, and I'm going to be really interested to see what happens when it gets to, right now we've got the sort of an answer, the statement of defense, to which is just deny, 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 deny. Also, your reputation sucks, but deny, deny, deny. What we'll see later is we're going to see a motion to dismiss. Coffeezilla is going to ask for this to be thrown out. And I suspect that is where things are going to get a little spicier. So stay tuned. We're going to cover that when it comes up. But this is a short, as I glance over and see that we're an hour in, this is a short video talking about what's going on here. And it's only going to get crazier from here, folks, I am sure. This one is interesting to me, so we'll cover it. I am trying to do a little bit more sort of Canadian content as well. So I'm going to cover some more Canadian cases. But this one is kind of fascinating to me. I should note as disclosure here, I have met Coffeezilla. Briefly. I have never met Logan Paul. I don't think I made a great impression on Coffeezilla. But yeah, I'm not in contact with him. I cannot claim that we're friends. I cannot anything like that. So, yeah, um, that's kind of what's going on. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. You can also support this channel on Patreon, which is linked below in the description. I want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level: Cielo, CCFR, PJs Forever, Canada's National Firearms Association, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, as well as at the $20 level, Mark, Lindsay Metcalf, Larry Kalniak, Kyle Fox, Drunkle of the Baileys, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, and Dorky Dane. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.